And here we go again. This time we're going to be looking at a lesson that involves integrating PHP and MySQL. Take it away, Logan.
At long last, the main purpose of the series.
Putting them together.
Okay, so now in the last section you saw we created that extra user for PHP to use. So now we're going to actually write what script is going to hold that information for PHP to use. So I'm going to open this up. I mean, this is my favorite text editor. A lot of people use either Notepad or Ultra Edit or PHP Edit. I like Context because it can handle huge blocks of text easily.
And where can you go get context from for those that are interested?
Probably download.com. And that's the other thing I like about it. It's free.
We like free, don't we?
Yep. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is in PHP, I've got to store that information, like because PHP needs to know what database it's going to be connecting to and what user to connect under. So I'm just going to open a PHP tag real quick, drop down, and I'm going to create some variables to hold this data. So first I'll do is $db underscore host equals, let me go turn on PHP syntax highlighting. Now this is very different from the standard like inside of PHP Ed and stuff. It's just I've gotten very used to this. So if you don't like it, just catch me on the forum sometime and I'll change if you really want to. So anyway, okay, the host we're going to be connecting to is localhost, because these scripts again are running on PHP that we have running on this machine.
And something I will point out while Logan's typing those things in is that right now we're not going to start reviewing the things that we covered in the last particular VTM. I mean, we've already talked about PHP tags and putting those inside an HTML document. We also already talked about variables and some of these basic things. So basically we're just going to be covering new material. So if any of this seems kind of Greek to you, you need to go back to the very first PHP MySQL CD or VTM and take a look at that.
And again, this DB name or database name, PHP does need to know what database to use. Kind of like when just now when I loaded up MySQL, I told it to use that MySQL database before I could work with it. And the last VTM, we created a BuzzDB when we were testing MySQL. So that does exist, and that's the one I'm going to be working in. So let me close that off and check some stuff. Okay, so now we've got some information established, but at this point, all this is variables. This would be a blank screen if we tried to load it. What this is going to be is a single point for holding this stuff. Normally, okay, say if you just did this and later on you started made the connection and so on and so forth, but then you made another script and you would have to copy this exact same information if you wanted to use the same database. But then let's say someday you change the database out or move your scripts to another server and this information is no longer valid. Then you would have to go into each individual script and change those values. What I'm going to do is save this one script in a certain location, and then all the scripts that will have database access will use this script. There's a function called include and another one called require. They do the same thing except that require the script will fail if it can't get to this. So basically this is going to be its own PHP file. Any other PHP script that uses the database will load this file in. So that means if you had 100 scripts and they all use the database and they were all including this one, if you needed to change something, you'd change one script instead of 100.
Absolutely. What he's doing right now is called being efficient.
Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and save this out onto my, let's see if I load up the K drive, yeah, in the webroot folder. And I'm not going to throw it right at webroot. I'm going to create an extra folder, and you'll see this why I'm doing this in a minute. I'll call this folder config.
You sound like me now.
Let's go up under config, and we'll just call this db underscore config.php. And save that out. And now let's go ahead and actually load up or create a script to use it. I'm going to go ahead and close that out just to, well, I'll close that out in a second. Create a new script over here. And again, this script is actually going to connect to the database. So again, open a PHP tag, tab out a little. And now, like I said, okay, we've got this script over here. It's in the config folder. We're in a totally separate PHP script, but we need to basically we need to reference that in or include that or require. Let's see. So the first thing I need to do is go and load that script up. So I'll use require. Let me turn syntax on so I can see what I'm doing. Require, and then what do I want to require? All right. Now the thing is, where exactly is the script located? Of course, it's up under the web root folder, but in order to access it, you need to know exactly where it is. But what if you move this around, or you don't know exactly what your root folder, because it needs the whole path. It doesn't look at like your browser just when you typed in localhost or 127.0.0.1, then that was your web root. This requires, because this when require runs to load in a file, it's not looking at the web server. It's looking at the machine's local hard drive. Now, in order to get this, we could just go and figure out exactly where that script is located. Or we could use an existing Apache environment variable or a server variable that holds that. Whenever you're working in PHP, you always have the location that the script is in, which can be incredibly useful for making your scripts very easy to move around. This is where we'll get into what's called a predefined variable, and it's called $_server, and this is an array, which means it holds basically multiple variables inside itself, and one of those is called document root. Now that holds the path to where this script is. When I save the script into webroot, document root is going to hold all the path before that leads to the webroot folder. So now we've got the basic location of where we are. If we just said require document root, then I'll use the dot, remember string concatenation, and then whatever at this point, once we're inside here, we're basically looking at files inside of webroot. But remember I added that config folder. So I'll go ahead and do /config. So now we're in the config folder, and then that db config.php. So now we're letting PHP fill in the path to our webroot folder. Then we're going to go under config and load in this db config php. And what that does for us is now we have those variables established. We went through and set all this stuff. So now in just one line of code, and this would be the exact same line in other scripts, we have those variables established. So with that, it's basically the same thing as if we had written this out inside the script. And it will also, when you require a script, it will basically include and run that script. So if I had like echoes over in the db config, it would actually echo out. So now let's see, yeah, we're ready to go ahead and actually establish a connection. Now, the function we're going to be using to connect to the database is called MySQL_connect. That returns the ID that links to a server. So we need to be able to store that so we can refer to it later. So we'll start a variable $connection equals the MySQL connect. So that way we'll have, whenever we need to refer to this MySQL connection, we'll refer to $connection. So